yourself is a product of Stockholm, it says on the box. But I looked closely at it, made in Poland. So I thought that free healthcare meant that you didn't have that healthcare cost, you could produce things. No. In Sweden, they're sending their stuff out to Poland, to the Czech Republic, to Hungary, Romania. Those former communist countries are now booming because they've realized where they were before, they don't want their children to be. I'll never forget Kazik Demansky when he told me, he says, I made up my mind. Moje dzieci niech będą komuniści. My children will not be communists. That was strong coming from this refugee who came to this country. And those are the kind of things I says, Kazik, what would you tell young people in this country who think that Marxism and communism and all this kind of stuff is so cool? And so he says, come live the way the common people do. Not the way the Communist Party officials do. Not the way the government apparatchiks do. They live better than everyone else. Everyone else lives like an animal. They live better. Because that's the way the system works. And you take a look at Barack Obama, he wants sacrifices from all the rest of us. While his wife is going to spend $400 for tennis sneakers, he's going to have a $60 pizza flown in from St. Louis, and he's going to demand sacrifice from all the rest of us? Say to hell with you. No way. How dare you? Who do you think you are? I could go on for a long time, but I have so much material, but I'll save it for another time. But I want to leave you with two stories about what is it that drives my passion? What is it that makes me the way I am, that I feel so strongly about these issues? Two stories in particular. I saw a riveting Nightline report back, I think it was 1999. And the report showed, it was called The Welfare State's Dirty Little Secret. And John Lawrence from ABC came upon this story. And what he found out was, that it was what was coming to light right now in Sweden, was that for years, the Swedish government was carrying out, through their doctors, a forced sterilization policy where they didn't have to inform the children or their parents. Let's say that a child went in for a routine operation, or he had a club foot or whatever, or the child was in some kind of an institution, or like a reform school or whatever. They could sterilize that child without notification of anybody under Swedish law. Swedish authorities took the first steps toward a racial hygiene policy in 1921 when the State Institute for Race Biology was founded in Uppsala, Sweden. It was the first institute of this kind in the world and pattern for the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Rassenhygiene in Berlin, Germany. The institute distributed pictures of racially clean and racially mixed people. The racially mixed were gypsies, so-called travelers or tinkers, and others considered social outcasts. Well, we know what that policy led to in Germany. But you see, this all began in Sweden. And kids were sterilized if they didn't look Aryan enough. John Lawrence and Ted Koppel interviewed a couple of middle-aged Swedes, a man and a woman, who couldn't figure out, as they got older, why they couldn't have children. And they found out, well, you must have been part of the sterilization policy. And this woman, she wasn't a particularly attractive woman, but she wasn't a particularly ugly woman, but I guess she just wasn't pretty enough as a child for those doctors to say, yeah, I don't think we should let her procreate. What a hideous evil. And that was exposed on Nightline with Ted Koppel and John Lawrence in Sweden, a welfare state socialist country. The second thing I want to leave you with is a personal experience. Back in the 70s, I had purchased a business with my partner, and we were in order to do this, we had to assume the liabilities of the previous owner. So we called all the creditors, which included the IRS, because he owed some $7,500 worth of withholding taxes to the IRS. So before we would do this, we call all the creditors and says, look, we can pay you, we will pay you, we're assuming this man's obligation, but we're going to pay you with monthly payments, and we're going to do it through a trustee lawyer who's going to handle these payments for us. And he says, okay, and everybody accepted our agreements, including the IRS. Well, here we are, we're in our second month there in the business, and one day I get a visit from the Internal Revenue Service. Guy comes in, flashes a badge, Leon Furlow, Internal Revenue Service. Young man was with him, flashes a badge, he's his associate. Looks to me like he's his trainee. He's going to show the young kid how to do this. He's walking around, pacing up and down my office, says, Mr. Matiyow, we're here to demand payment in full of this $7,500 of this IRS withholding. Okay, Mr. Furlow, have a seat, I'll explain this to you. I'm in contact with Mr. Erickson from your office. Here's the arrangements we made. We're making payments to this trustee. This trustee's the attorney. Here's the attorney's name. And the payments can be forwarded directly to, well, I don't think so. I don't know. Well, okay, fine. I'll talk to Mr. Erickson. So I called Erickson. And Mr. Erickson, again, Maddie, you remember our conversation? Here's our, well, I don't remember that conversation. Well, no, wait, Mr. Erickson, you remember we talked, and it was verbal. I made verbal agreements with everybody. Nothing was in writing. That's a big mistake. But he referred me to the guy who was standing in front of me, being very high-handed. I said, Mr. Furlow, Mr. Erickson doesn't remember our conversation, but let me reiterate again. Here's the attorney. He's the trustee. You can contact him. We're going to be straight with this. We're making monthly payments, and we're going to take care of this. We're going to be starting on this next month. And if we break any of these payments, well, obviously, then you got a basis with it. But we just came in here. We're starting this business virtually from scratch again. But we thought we had a good opportunity here. We wouldn't have taken this or taken on all these obligations unless we accept these. Mr. Matiyow, I think this is an attempt to defraud the government of the United States. I'm going to have to execute a seizure. What do you mean, going to execute a seizure? So he says, walking around these little red tags, property of the U.S. government. He's putting them all over the office. I'm walking around after tearing up these little cards. He says, what are you doing? I says, what are you doing? I says, listen, I'm an American citizen. This is not Stalinist Russia. It's not Nazi Germany. You're trespassing. Get the hell out.
Good for you.
Obviously, I was shaking. This guy is Mr. Matiyow. We will be here Friday with federal marshals to remove you from the premises forcibly. I said, Mr. Furlow, you bring an army. I'm going quietly. I could see that this kid, he didn't know what to make of this because he wasn't expecting this. He walked out and said, oh, Jesus, I just threw an IRS officer. What do I do now? I contact my attorney. He says, you did what? He said, he's getting high-handed. What do you expect? He said, well, I'll call him, whatever. I said, you know what? I paid a visit downtown. I visited the office of then-Senator Robert Griffin. Now, Robert Griffin has since been replaced by Carl Levin. He defeated him in the election. So I went to Congress. So I went to Senator Griffin's office, talked to his aide, explained the situation. He said, well, you made a perfectly reasonable offer. And the guy was being very high-handed. Well, let me make some phone calls, talk to his superior, see what I can do. Well, a couple weeks later, I got a call from Mr. Furlow. Oh, Mr. Matiyow, about that misunderstanding in your office. Mr. Furlow was no misunderstanding. So I guess my arrangements are pretty cool, right? We're okay with this. He says, yeah, some arrangements are perfectly okay. It's fine. I says, so, Mr. Furlow, I think there's a lesson here. You tried to muscle an American citizen. You muscled the wrong guy. Don't do that again. Because we don't deserve that. These two stories. Sweden. Their racial eugenics policy, or whatever the hell you want to call it. That IRS officer. There's a common thread in these two stories. These people represent compassionate government. These people represent government that's there to take care of you. Government that's there to protect you from life's uncertainties. How many of you remember Mark Scott? Radio talk show host. The late Mark Scott used to finish his broadcast with a very poignant question. I think you all remember